Leah and Bethanne of She Will Rock You Pod are back as we continue the trilogy of trilogies and the Star Wars sequel trilogy with The Last Jedi. Right after the jump. Good evening, fellow nerds. It is Thursday, January 13th, 2022. Welcome to episode 75 of Lights Thunder Action, where every week two Thunder Buddies discuss all things Marvel, Star Wars, DC, and the latest happenings in the entertainment industry. I'm Thomas Carter Rochester, and today Leah and Bethanne of She Will Rock You Pod will be on in just a moment to rekindle our discussion of the trilogy of trilogies as we dive into The Last Jedi. But first, we are live beaming directly into your homes and phones via our LightsThunderAction Facebook and the HWWS WebTV channel on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. All of those links can be found at Linktr.com/Thunder Action. All one word, no hyphens, no spaces. Be sure to like, subscribe, and or follow to view the live version of our show where you can interact with us. But if you do not want to look at my ugly mug bearded face and you want to hear the beautiful voices of myself and the guest, then you can keep up with us. Follow and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, and our hosting site of Spreaker. Leave us a 5-star review if you're feeling extra generous. Your support means the world to us, and I thank you on behalf of David and myself for your support and patience. And now the time of the day that everyone is really excited for, the millennials of rock history themselves, co-hosts for She Will Rock You podcast, Leah Jones and Bethanne Tarpley.
Stop doing the same face as me,
No.
Leah.
That's how we do this now.
Every time.
Hell yeah, that's the way it's done. Welcome back. It's been a long time, a whole fracking week. How you been? How's it been? It's been a long week. I heard you guys are getting ready for some snow, or is it salt?
It's salt.
It's definitely salt.
Yeah.
So it's more crepe than hot.
I'll taste it when I get outside and it finally starts doing its thing.
for phrasing? Anyways, yeah, it's not gonna snow here in Florida. It's probably gonna be 75 over the next week is my guess. I don't know. I've been locked inside the house, so woo. So yeah, I know, right? We are last week. Before we dive into the trilogy of trilogies, let's recap. Last week we talked about The Force Awakens. It was more of a setup to The Last Jedi kind of episode. So I wanted to circle back and just sprinkle some love on The Force Awakens. And I wanted to say that, wow, does that movie have so much hope built into the script? I feel like I went back and rewatched it before watching Last Jedi just to feel the energy again. It's just so fun. It's so good. There's so much hope. There's so much fun happening in the actor's eyes, and then it's just the future is set up. And in Last Jedi, not every actor gets the same script, basically, is a good way to put it. But there's still hope built into the script, and I feel like when we get to Rise of Skywalker, the judgment will be made on whether it holds that hope. Bethanne, what kind of compliments would you like to sprinkle on The Force Awakens?
Well, I think hope is a great word. I would almost say a new hope. But
okay.
I love Force Awakens. Like I really hope in retrospect, like that as time goes on, like people see the gem that is that movie, because it is very nostalgic. It feels like a Star Wars movie. It puts you in the moment and brings you to a galaxy far, far away. It is a successful Star Wars movie.
What about you, Leah?
Force Awakens walked so Last Jedi could run, but it introduced
Mhm.
us to the lovable characters that are in these series, including BB-8, which where would we be as a society without BB-8?
This is true.
MVD right there, most valuable droid.
Yes. He's just a
All
puppy.
throughout.
My favorite part of the whole movie is Poe giving him belly rubs. Like,
Correct.
I knew that was coming. Yeah. that's the moment when Poe becomes Poe again in the movie, which we'll really get to, because I love this movie. I'll be honest, it's still my favorite of this entire trilogy. I see the
I brought out
flaws a lot.
my
The Last
Jedi cup for this occasion.
Oh.
As one should. Really quick, shout out to Terry McIver in the comments. He says The Last Jedi is one of his favorite movies, not only Star Wars, but movies in general.
Mhm.
That's what we're here to talk about. So we're going to go ahead and hop into the trilogy of trilogies.
When stories are told brilliantly, opinions are viewed differently. We bring them all together when you get this great soliloquy. When Trinity leaves affinity, our co-host eyes left Mr. Lee. We present you with another round of the Trilogy of Trilogies.
The Last Jedi. We have made it. We finally have survived 18,000 years. No, I'm just kidding. What was it? 3-ish years, 2 years of waiting for this movie to come out.
So long. It
Mhm.
felt like 12 years.
11 years while we're here. Let's just throw some Rugrats in here. So this movie starts off, it's the evacuation of the rebel base. Poe's cracking wise with General Hughes, emphasis on the G's, destroying guns on the battle dreadnought to bring in the bombers. And then, the resistance loses 11 ships, 7 bombers, aka all the bombers, an A-wing, 3 X-wings, and they're left with like a total of 8 ships in their fighter fleet. They jump to light space, and then we find out they're tied on the end of a string. And then Finn wakes up asking where is Rey, and I know that Leah made the very strong point last week that it was half the movie and it was 11 minutes and 19 seconds.
It feels a lot longer.
I was literally thinking about that when I was watching it. I was like, wait, didn't Leah said this happens at like the 45-minute mark or something?
If there's so much happening in that opening scene, though, that you feel like it was 30, 40 minutes.
It was 82 years.
It was 82 years.
Yeah, no, but always a fun time when when there's so much happening. It took me a while to narrow down the stuff that happens that's important, because I lingered on that page sequence for a while. Everyone hates on it. I think it's great. I think it's beautiful.
No, it's so good.
Yeah, people just don't understand appropriate art. David doesn't get it.
It sets up the whole theme of the human cost of war throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I'm glad you brought that up. So we're gonna go through this first sequence as fast as we can. I call it Act 1. We're in Octo. Luke eats the lightsaber off the cliff. Rey retrieves the hilt. Chewie busts through Luke's door, growls to Luke that he'll tell him everything on the Falcon, and that's when Luke says, "Where's Han?" We cut to Snoke's throne room. Snoke talks shit to Kylo Ren. I can summarize it with too much of your father's heart in you. Wow. Killing Han Solo split Kylo Ren to the bone, and he's now just a child in a mask. And then Kylo destroys his helmet in a fit of rage. Beautiful. And then that brings us to Rey trying to convince Luke that he needs to help out the Resistance. She says, "We need Luke Skywalker." He says, "You don't need Luke Skywalker. What do you expect me to do? Walk out there and face that whole First Order with a laser sword?" And then something happens, and Rey gets called to the Great Tree Library, I've named it, by the sacred Jedi text, setting up Rey and Luke actually having a conversation. Which we'll take a pause before the conversation. What did we think about all this fun stuff that happened? And definitely in like 35 minutes, not There's a lot of stuff going on in the first 30 to 45 minutes of this movie.
I forgot how fast it was. I actually checked the time right around the tree library, and I was like, it's only been 30 minutes. What the heck?
Yeah.
And I think that's like overall for this film, its pacing is very good for the amount of content it has to cover. Because it's a long boy. It's a 2.5 hour film, but it does a great job of not making it feel too short or making it feel too long. But as far as for everything that's happened, yeah, it's a lot in 30 minutes, but I think it's a great foundation for what they go to explore as far as for themes later on in the film.
And one thing that makes this different than I think even The Force Awakens is right from the get-go, it's funny. Like, it has a lot more humor than any other Star Wars movie, I dare to say. Starting with happy beeps, buddy, happy beeps. There's just so many good one-liners that are like in that Marvel vein of writing where they're funny without being distracting.
Yeah. I agree.
Yes. I concur. And I love that it's BB-8 that gets to say, I have a bad feeling about this.
Yes.
That's fun. Shout out to the MVB ball droid. In the comments, we have Brian Wenzeloff. He says that Rian Johnson is a great filmmaker and did something with Star Wars that needed to happen. The Legend of the Traveling TARDIS is here. They ask, is this live or is it Memorex? This is a live holo call from across the interwebs, coming from Asgard, the Power Rangers Command Center, and Labyrinth. That's where I'm coming from. I got a portal over here. You can't see it. But if I turn the camera, there's a portal behind the couch. So this is live, and we are here to talk Last Jedi. Let's get back to the plot really quick. Why were you here? Oh, yes. The real question is, why are you here, Ray of Nowhere? And she says, I need help, which I found to be a fun, different take on Star Wars, because very rarely does the main character tell someone that they need help. And that takes us to space, where Leia demotes Poe because Poe is being...
You're demoted.
Yeah.
He's
I
a
love that
cocky
moment.
boy.
There it is. Yeah, he's being very cockpitty, if you know what I'm saying. Ready to shoot everything at a moment's notice. And then Leia tells Finn that she's holding a homing beacon for Rey to find her way back home. And this had me thinking, perhaps that's how the First Order tracks them through hyperspace. I could be wrong. It's the first time I've ever thought of it. I wrote it down and ran away from it.
I feel like I've read the explanation somewhere, but I can't tell you where. So we'll go with it.
We'll go with it. The answer is maybe.
Maybe.
Leia says that they need to send a message to the allies in the Outer Rim. Snoke's ship shows up. They've tracked him through light speed. The landing bay gets destroyed, and then Ben and Leia have their moment through the Force before a ship blows up the bridge of the Resistance ship. And then that leads to Leia using the Force to get back inside of the ship. And that brings us to the first real pause in this film. To really dive deep here, I have a question. I know there are thoughts here. Did you ever have an issue with this moment?
No. And let me tell you why. Because it's not about Leia necessarily. It is about Ben in that role. Keep in mind, for Last Jedi, it is a great character study of Ben Solo and why he became what he became. But that moment is instrumentally in there to show that he still has conflict. He still has light in him. And that's why he couldn't kill his mom. And, I understand, the Force and Leah coming back in, you have to keep her in for the sequel. And it makes sense because she is Force sensitive. But that scene is really for Ben Solo and understanding the mind of him. So for me, it makes sense. I don't have an issue with it.
Was the question about Leia using the Force?
Oh, I don't know what your question was about.
Sure.
That's what I thought the question was, because I personally don't like the use of the Force in this context. It's like the one issue I have with this movie, because when I saw it for the first time, I was like, oh, they're just killing Carrie off in the first 30 minutes of this movie. Okay, cool. let's go there. And then it was like, nope, just kidding. And it felt kind of like really mean because it made you really emotional for literally no reason.
That's a trope in this entire sequel trilogy. It started last week with Poe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then it starts again with Leia, only to then just take her out of the movie still.
Yeah, the way I get why they had to work around it the way they did, but the way they did is still very weird and kind of clunky. I think
Did
it
they
works
have to work
better.
around it?
It works better in this movie than it does in The Rise of Skywalker, obviously because they had more content to work with around this time. But
yeah,
that's not how the Force works.
I beg to differ, Plo Koon.
Yeah.
Nah. He does have a respirator.
But he was a trained Jedi too.
So
like,
is Leia.
Very trained.
Didn't
We
you
don't
see
know
The Rise of
Leia is a trained
Skywalker?
Jedi at this
Didn't you
point.
see
But
The Rise of
also-
Skywalker?
Unfortunately.
If I can interject here real quick,
Yes, Bethanne.
and we may be jumping ahead, what is the whole movie about? And not to spoil it for anybody who didn't watch it in 2016, but
Spoiler
the
ban's
movie
lifted.
is about the forces for everyone. And for me, the Leia scene is a precursor to that theme that gets presented throughout the film. So that's also another reason why I don't have a problem with it. I understand it leads into a trope where she's out of the movie half, which I don't like that sequel carried. But this actual scene is not an issue for me because it makes sense with the rest of the film.
It's also not how space works because you would die literally instantly.
But this is special space, Leah.
Not true. You get like 12 seconds or something as your body begins to expand, but with the Force.
Expand and freeze.
Yeah, but with the Force, you have the ability to control somebody's entire physical matter by lifting them and moving them and transporting them across space and time via levitations. Why can that not at the same time give you a small force field to get back inside?
Here's the other thing I've thought of while we're having this discussion, though. I don't like it if Leia's the one doing it. I do like it if Ben's the one doing it. Remotely. If he's remotely the one saving his mother. Because he wasn't going to shoot her. And we know he's strong enough to do that. Like, he could totally do that from his TIE fighter and, like, push her to safety. So, if it's him doing it, I like it. If it's her doing it, I don't like it.
Wow. I love
Thoughts?
it. I've never had an issue with it because at that point I'm like, oh yeah, cool. Like, she's been training in the Force. That's all I wanted to know. That was my tease of she's been training in the Force. Why is that the first time we've ever seen it? Is what everyone said. Is it though? It's not. It's really not.
It's really
That's
not.
just her exerting her Force instead of just using it here and there, like subtly. Hers is more of a battle meditation. I think her usage of the Force is battle meditation over everything else, and that's what's great about it. And in that moment, it's all about survival of herself and all of those things. Not everyone likes the Mary Poppins effect, as they call it. I've never had issue with it, especially when Rise of Skywalker did one thing great and gave us a really good scene of her training and instantly being the person who's like, oh yeah, I'm probably gonna have to die to save everyone, so I'll just do that, like in 50 30 years, like in BD, right? Well, I'm surprised that Leah had issues with the Leia of it all.
It's like the one thing I had an issue with.
I do like if it's Ben Solo doing that take.
That would have been cool.
And I think the problem is whenever someone has an issue with something in the film, they overshadow like the thing that precedes it, the more important thing right above it. And that is the action of Ben Solo is showing that he's still got some little light in there, like a little Anakin. You can't. Oh, what?
Oh, I actually wrote a thought down on.
Is that a fire alarm?
No, that's my dishwasher telling me that it opened the door that I didn't ask for. I got a new dishwasher, folks, and literally after its cycle, it popped open the door. While you're doing your intro, Rhodey starts howling, and I was like, okay, that was weird. And now it's saying, hey, why didn't you close me? Bitch, you opened yourself. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Leah, yeah, go.
So I wrote down when I was watching the scene, because I have this like headcanon where Kylo is the anti-arc to Vader, where he follows the whole path backwards. And so the catalyst for Vader becoming Vader really begins when he becomes an orphan and his mom dies. So what if thinking his mom is dead is the catalyst for the going towards the light? Because he thought she was dead until, either she pushed herself or he pushed her to safety. But that was what I wrote down.
Okay. Huh.
I spent a lot of time thinking about this movie, more than I think about The Force Awakens. So I have way more thoughts.
Way more thought. I like that. I like when we have way more thoughts.
Yeah.
Back to Octo. We go inside the Falcon. Luke is reminiscing by just looking around. R2 comes up. Luke says, I wish I could help you feel better. Luke says nothing can make him change his mind. R2 plays the Leia original message from A New Hope, which he calls a dirty trick. Luke wakes up Rey and says there will be 3 lessons, and then she will learn what the Jedi must end. Then we find out back to space, Admiral Akbar and all the leadership, other than Leia, have perished in the ship. Poe responds by saying, so we blow that one up. That's out of order, but okay. Oh, right. Yeah. Somewhere in here, Rose and Finn meet, and I don't have that written down. That's unfortunate. Because Rose and Finn are cool people.
Important.
They're very important. Akbar, all the leadership are gone. Finn tries to leave, runs into Rose. They communicate. She electrocutes him. They've discussed the whatchamacallit, the tracking through hyperspace.
Tracking.
Thank you, hyperspace tracking. That's less words. And then they realize they need a master code breaker. They tell Poe. Poe says, oh, so we blow up the lead ship. There he is, thinking with his cockpit again. They call Maz Kanata. They need a code breaker to get on the Canto by it. Boom, we're back to Octo, where things are actually happening that matter. I can't believe I said that. David's going to roast me for pointing out something that he agrees with. Back to something that really does matter. Octo, Kylo's getting repaired and Rey is waking up. Then boom! They can see each other, and that's when we start to get the dyad stuff. Rey immediately shoots the Kylo, but it really putting just a hole in the wall. And then Kylo says he can only see her and not her surroundings. Then that it just ends, and Rey starts training with Luke. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get us to the second dyad scene real fast, so we can dive into the Reylo of it all, because I know y'all are Reylo stans.
Yes.
Right. All right. So she sits on the throne. She reaches out with her feelings. We get some funny dialogue. Of course we do. But she can feel the island, the balance of the Force, and inside of her, that same Force. And this is the lesson. To say if the Jedi dies, the light dies, is hubris and vanity. Can you feel that? Rey is then called to the darkness. To the code. It wants to show her something. A new universe. No, I'm sorry. That's not. It's the wrong movie. Wrong universe there. But it wants to show her something. Luke freaks out. Rey reveals that Luke has closed himself off from the Force. Luke deflects it and says that he's afraid of her raw power, as he saw it once before in Ben Solo. Dyad scene number 2 comes up, with the sound mixing being my favorite piece of this sequel trilogy when it comes to the Force. Solo asks if Luke told Rey why he destroyed the temple. She says, "You're a monster." He says, "Yes, I am." And the first hint of matter being transportable through the dyadic connection, with rain dropping on his face. Let's talk about the beginnings of Reylo here. I will let the Reylo stands take over. We'll start with Leah this time.
Okay, hopefully my connection will stay stable. You guys are flickering. This is the scene that launched 1,000 fanfics. It's not as tense as I remember it being in the moment. I think maybe now that we've had 7 years between us and it, but it does still build to the ultimate grand finale that we get at the end. I call it Force FaceTime. I love Force FaceTime so much. It gives us the best scenes. And I just love that arc of their scenes without jumping ahead so much. The exchanges that happen between the two of them are just so well done.
Bethanne.
I mean, it's about the Ben Swallow for sure. I mean, that scene alone is just worth price of admission, isn't it? No, I think, like Leah said, the Force FaceTime, those scenes are really pivotal. And I also think they're really creative. Like, we haven't seen the Force presented that way in a film before. And I thought, it was simple but very effective. The fact that they're tied together in some way and they can communicate. And I just really, that's what I like about this movie is you're seeing different perspectives of things that you've taken for granted in the series. And Rian Johnson, I got to give him kudos because he actually asked the question why or how. And that's how I feel about these Reylo scenes is, yeah, it started the Tumblr fan pages and all that fun stuff. But it really gives us another glimpse into how does this actually work? Why is it doing this? And I really enjoy that.
Yes, and I believe this is the first seedlings, this second dyad scene of the story of Luke and Ben Solo's turn, if you will. I think that is when we start to get that little hint of it. But really quick, Canto Bite. Finn loves the casino. Rose does not because they're rich or selling weapons to the First Order. They're arrested before getting to their code breaker at the casino. And then we cut back to Octo and we get to lesson 2. Now that they're extinct, the Jedi are romanticized, deified. But if you strip away the myth and look at their deeds, the legacy of the Jedi is failure, hypocrisy, hubris. Rey disagrees. Whatever. At the height of the powers of the Jedi, Luke says, they allowed Darth Sidious to rise, create the Empire, and wipe them out. Then he says it was a Jedi Master who was responsible for the training and creation of Darth Vader. Rey counters with a Jedi who saved him. And then, we get...
Uh-oh.
Oh, I thought it was just me.
Nope.
Whoops. Cool.
So anyway, Last Jedi.
Maybe we should wait and see if he comes back.
Yeah.
I have lots of thoughts on Canto Bite, but I want Thomas to hear them.
I do too.
So we'll wait for him to come back. We can talk about funny moments in the script. One of the best moments in the movie is when Luke tells Rey to reach out for the Force, and she does this, and he just slaps her hand with the little leaf. It makes me cackle every time I watch it.
Okay, first off, can we just talk about how Mark Hamill, like, they wrote, I guess we are running the show right now. We'll wait for Thomas to come back in. I love Mark Hamill's role in this because they didn't bring back an old version of Luke, so to speak. They really did age him. And they also brought Mark Hamill's humor because if you've watched The Joker, anything like that, any of his voice acting pieces, he really does have this really like sarcastic side to him. And they let him embrace that. And I think that's what made part of these one-liners really funny. But yeah, that's really funny. Another favorite scene going to and I don't like this didn't catch me when I first saw it, but when I did the rewatch of it yesterday, Finn with Rose, and then Rose is like, yeah, we've had a lot of people trying to escape. And he's like, no, like it was just this like really good character moment, so to speak.
Yeah, the whole exchange with them is so funny. Or he's like, who would do that? And he just like hides his backpack, and she really quickly realizes that he would do that. I think Thomas is working on resetting his internet. So if you're watching this, he's coming back. He's just been having some internet issues for the evening. He did say to talk about Clone War era Jedi, but that's kind of going to be a one-sided conversation until he comes back.
Yeah.
So I'll let him come back.
Yeah.
I had a thought around that Rose scene. What did I write down? I feel like I wrote something down. Oh, another thought from earlier is that Snoke is much more threatening in this movie from the very beginning. When there's that scene after everything gets bombed and the destroyer is destroyed, and he like has changed tones completely in this movie, which I'm here for because, like I said last week, he was not that threatening in The Force Awakens.
Right.
And he had every reason to be threatening in The Force Awakens.
No, I agree with that. I mean, this is definitely a more Snoke-heavy film. You know, Andy Serkis definitely brings it in a little bit more. And I think what's different about, we're going to call him the main villain, even though he's really not, right?
He's in this movie.
He is in this movie. But compared to the originals, where Palpatine is really hidden behind the holographic curtain, if you will. With this one, which I always thought was interesting, is they don't really hide him. You actually get to know the character. Whereas in the originals, you see Palpatine, 10 minutes? This one, you actually get to see what Snoke is actually doing before they, which I thought was really interesting.
I really hope that in the future we get some kind of movie or mini series or something that's like the Snoke origin story, because we really don't know anything about him.
We don't know his origin. Well, I don't, as the movie going on.
We really don't. Like, ever when there was that scene in the second season of Mandalorian where there's all those like failed clones in a jar.
Yeah.
People have speculated that those were Snoke prototypes. Right. But we don't know that for sure. It's just based off a 2-second clip in a TV show. Nothing's in writing. So I hope that we get some kind of introductory story. I don't care if it's a book, if it's a comic series. Like, I want more info on Snoke. And I'm assuming that may come out of The Mandalorian, and that's why they haven't explored it more.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's some genetic lab stuff going on with Grogu and him being tested. So I don't know. That's pure speculation. Hey, good. I was running out of things to start
with. What did I miss? I'm back.
We're talking about Mark Hamill, one-liners, Snoke.
Okay.
Yeah, we want a Snoke origin story, but I said maybe we'll get that in Mandalorian.
Okay.
Maybe we won't.
Maybe we won't.
I think a limited comic run explaining where he came from would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be okay with that. I think I was somewhere in this Luke Skywalker section of him hating himself. Basically, he this scene is so great. People like to say that it's not my Luke Skywalker. I think it is that Luke Skywalker. He's going to. He looked at his hubris and he looked at what happened and he felt that he was repeating the cycle, and he made a choice. Not saying it's the right choice or the wrong choice, but he made a choice that he thought would be better. And everybody makes those decisions, and the best part is at least he didn't go to the dark side like his father. Right? He got tempted, and every time he would walk back, but sometimes when you get tempted, you still cross a line that can never come back. Hashtag Ben Solo. Ben Swallow, excuse me.
Ben Swallow, thank you.
Ben Swallow, yes. He's yoked. I've heard that Kylo Ren has an 8-pack. So
I heard that Kylo Ren is shredded.
Yeah, exactly. Thumbs up. Kylo approves. I think it's a great tie. And if you watch the Clone Wars, everything that he says right here is so dead on because of the politics of it all. And as fans of the book, when it comes to the High Republic era and seeing how good those Jedi really are and how they're idealistic, but they are still pragmatic at the same time, very, very far have the Jedi fallen. Order. So that's all I want to say about that. I think that scene is perfection. It's peak, and Luke has to have something. Life can't be easy for everybody, right?
Very true.
Yes.
Which, getting back to space, the Resistance fleet is dwindling. We go to Canto Bight. Finn and Rose get a code breaker in the form of Benicio del Toro as DJ. Finn and Rose judge him by the cover of his clothing book. Shame on them. BB-8 kicks ass, shooting coins like bullets. They escape by giving the ring of the resistance to that one kid, and they free all of the Fathiers and find their way onto a ship stolen by BB-8 or DJ. Very unconfirmed.
It's definitely BB-8.
It was definitely BB-8.
He's a baller. Because we'll see later on, he likes to steal some shit. Moral of this sequence is the freedom for all creatures. That's why I like the Canto Bight sequence. You know, we learn to be free, which, you know, everybody makes their own decisions, whether right, wrong, or for money. Octo, Luke touches the Force and Leia calls out to him. This is when everything starts to really pick up. Dyad stuff. Ben Swallow makes his appearance, and Rey confronts why he killed his father Solo, not Swallow. He was a little old to be swole. We get the Solo side of the story. Luke attacked him in his sleep, and then he says, "Let the past die. Kill it if you have to." And the people who hate this movie latch on to that quote as if it's the only effing quote that's ever came out of this movie, which we'll get back to. Rey goes to the dark side, and we get that cool mirror sequence where she sees a million of her, nothing for her parents, and she tells Kylo this. They touch fingertips, and they see the future. The future. Luke destroys the building. Rey fights Luke. He's back in tune with the Force, and Rey thinks Ben will turn back to the light, and that's how they're going to win. Yoda shows up, lights the tree of the great library tree on fire, and causes Luke, because Luke couldn't. He does it with Force lightning while being dead. Wicked awesome. Drops some wisdom, and I love this quote here. Skywalker, always looking to the horizon. Never here, now, right in front of your nose. And then he says, the greatest teacher failure is we are what we grow beyond. That is the true burden of all masters. Who popped real hard for a good old Yoda here?
I love that they brought back Puppet Yoda. Crazy Puppet Yoda. They redeemed themselves.
And Frank Oz with it.
Yes.
They redeemed bad CGI clone Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, 100%.
I hate that version of Yoda.
Listen, it's better than their young Yoda puppet that looks like Mark Hamill in his 50s. Okay, that thing creeps me the hell out. Yeah. I like old school, crazy Yoda, not young, really wide-eyed.
Yeah,
Yoda.
no.
Yeah, I
like Hut and Dagobah Yoda.
Yes. Backpack Yoda, of course.
Yes. Seagulls Yoda.
Yeah. The most important version of
Stop
Yoda.
Now. Anyways.
Did you just me and Leah immediately started bobbing?
There was a time at our former employment where we listened to this every Friday over the speakers in the building. Did. So shout out to Ethan.
At 3 o'clock. At 3 o'clock. It always seemed to be.
Shout out to Ethan for starting that tradition.
That was a good
If you're listening to this in, ever.
Yeah. Shout out E-Money. Yeah. Up there in Colorado, smoking all the trees.
Oh, 100% he is.
That's 100%.
Not a lie.
Not a lie. No lies found. We are back in space. This is where we get the good guys, bad guys motif from DJ. And then it's, the owner of the ship sold weapons to both sides in the war. And Poe, here we go. That was a weird transition. Finn is upset. We jump to the resistance. Poe yells at Holdo for not knowing the plan. And then that's when we get, of course, my favorite quote from this movie. Hope is like the sun. If you can only believe in it when you can see it, you'll never make it through the night. And it makes Poe go extra angry and call Holdo a coward and a traitor. In my notes, I got ... Okay, question mark. We'll get to this. I think we should get to this when we get to the Holdo maneuver.
Okay.
Because that way it can be encompassed entirely. And I think we are going to have to do Holdo maneuver before Throne Room, even though most of Throne Room takes place before Holdo maneuver, just because.
We still got to talk about Canto Bight, though. Now that we finished the whole sequence. And why I think people who hate it are wrong.
You know what? You're right. We do got to do that. Where are we at?
Good guys, bad guys.
Good guys, bad guys. Good guys, bad guys. Before we get back to the Holdo Poe, let's get back to the good guys, bad guys. Well, okay, let's talk about Canto Bight. Why does everyone hate it, Leah?
Everyone says it does nothing to further the plot. And to that I say they're wrong. Because the movie spends the whole first third showing the human cost of war. And why it's bad. They get to Canto Bight. Now, everyone on Canto Bight is dressed in black and white. The only people who aren't are the resistance. So that in itself is symbolic of life has gray area. It's not always black and white. Like the people on Canto Bight see it, but they're not even seeing black and white because they're selling to both sides. To them, war is a business. They don't care about the human cost of war because the elite of, the world, the universe, the galaxy don't care about humans. They just care about money. And war is money. And so therefore, it's why it's called the Star Wars, is because there's never not going to be war because people are profiting.
Go off.
I was going to bring a certain timeline in American history, but best I don't. Watch Vice by Adam McKay to learn more.
But if you took the Canto Bight scenes out of the movie and just Maz sent a code breaker over to the ship or something and wrote that whole arc out, it wouldn't hit as hard because they wouldn't meet the next generation of the resistance to keep the, the human aspect of overthrowing the New Order alive. They wouldn't let I forget what they're called because I can never remember what they're called, the little animals free and have that whole symbolism of the people under the New Order are never going to be free because they just eat up resources and burn planets to the ground and then leave them to die, which is something that's been happening since the Empire. The movie wouldn't hit as hard without those sequences. There wouldn't be that payoff at the end when you see the little kid and his, levitating his broom.
I agree with that.
I do as well. And another part of it that I hate is when they say, it doesn't even matter. They fail in the end. The scene just prior that everyone touts is failure is the greatest lesson of all by Yoda. And people,
but you're not allowed to fail.
Yeah, but you're not allowed to fail. David Thompson. I'm kidding, bro. I love you. That's my only response when he's like, it fails. I'm like, dude, failure is the lesson of that whole bit. Because what did Finn learn? Not a damn thing.
No.
We'll get to that. Maybe. Probably not. But I think that, is it my favorite sequence? No. Do I fast forward through it like I fast forward through Padme and Anakin in episode 2? Yeah. Doesn't mean that there aren't good things in those sections. It's just not where I give a damn about the plot of the movie.
I would argue it's more enjoyable than the opera sequence, though.
Oh, you dislike the Darth Plagueis?
Yeah, I really don't like it. I'll watch it. I don't fast forward through anything, but I would rather watch Canto Bight and watch BB-8 fire coins at people than space opera.
Ironic. So let's get back to it. Rey is dropped to Snoke's ship. Poe pulls a mutiny. That was really hard to say. Poe pulls the mutiny, and then we have mutiny to holdover maneuver. Finn and Rose fail to accomplish their task as Leia busts through the door to stun Poe. Holdo is staying on the cruiser to handle the Holdo maneuver, which we don't know is the name yet, as the ships escape to Crate. And then Leia drops this line of, Holdo cared more about getting everyone to safety than being a hero. And this has me questioning, is that his whole arc, Poe's arc up to this? Is that why he's being such a curmudgeon? Does he just want to be a hero? I'm confused. I don't get it, but I have a more important question that is out of nowhere. Is the Holdo maneuver a playoff of what Ezra Bridger did? Because right before this, leading right up to it, Godspeed, Rebels. They keep bringing Rebels back in this movie for one movie.
Huh. I've never thought about it, but I mean, minus the space whales, yeah, it kind of is.
Same. but different.
Bethanne's like, what the hell are y'all talking about?
I'm tracking. I mean, I'm thinking more from a perspective of, I think it's interesting they did the anti-hero story arc because it is a franchise built on the hero story arc. So I think that was a really bold move when you think about it in hindsight.
Holdo gets so much hate for no reason.
She does. She pulls the Holdo maneuver, and that basically busts through the whatchamacallit, the Snoke ship with a lot of other things happening at once. But let's talk about Holdo and Poe, because I have a theory on why some people hate Holdo and side with Poe, and I want to hear the rest of everybody else. But I know that Leah really wanted to talk about this storyline.
Oh, I just love Hamill and Holdo from context outside of this movie, this movie, from the books. Hamill and Holdo is just like the sweetest person. She's just a free spirit. She just wants everyone to be happy. She just appreciates all cultures. So it's fascinating to me that like she went into war with Leia and ended up becoming this crazy respected general, because that's not her personality when she's 16 and you first meet her. If you haven't read Leia, Princess of Alderaan by Claudia Gray, so good. Such a good story.
Okay.
It's where you meet Holdo for the first, like canonically in the timeline, it's where you meet Holdo for the first time. They meet at the junior legislative thing in the Senate. She's shadowing Bail for like a summer. It's a really good story. Also, you meet Leia's first boyfriend, Pre-Han.
I already hate him.
Yeah, I don't like him. The whole time you're like, but you're not Han. So obviously you can't stay.
Is it a Rush Clovis situation?
Yeah, kind of. Not as deep, but the Holdo Poe thing is such a good arc because it's such a stereotypic arc. Like, you got the woman who's in command that no cocky boy wants to listen to. He's over here trying to be a hero when someone just someone above him has more experience and more knowledge and more wisdom of the situation because they've literally lived through this entire war before, and he doesn't want to listen. He just wants to go get in the cockpit and blow something up. I don't know where else I was going with that, but I love Hamill and Holdo, and I side with Holdo in this situation because someone needed to teach Poe that there's more to winning a battle than just blowing stuff up. Like, sometimes it's just getting to safety and getting to the next base, like doing what you can to survive instead of, losing, 9 ships at the beginning of the movie?
11,
because he just wanted to, prove his point that he could do it.
I think it's also interesting, kind of going back to what I was saying a little bit earlier, like with Holdo and Poe, it's kind of brave of the script writers to, Poe is one of the, main side characters, but he doesn't do the right thing. And usually it's reversed. If this was set up the way it usually is in that, I would say that common American storytelling that we're used to, Holdo would be the villain that's always trying to hold Poe down, but Poe's making the right choice. And it's a really fun flip that this movie does in all different places. I think makes it such a unique film. But I mean, if I'm choosing a side, I'm going to go Holdo because, I think it's fun that even as the audience, we're experiencing from Poe's point of view almost through the whole thing of we're not seeing everything at play. And instead we're like, what is she doing? Yeah, Poe, go stage a mutiny, get people on your side, hold guns to them, hold them hostage, right? We want that action scene, but what we're not seeing is she's thinking behind the scenes of how to get everyone to safety and get them to keep the rebellion alive. And I think that's really fulfilling for me, for an audience member to go through that experience.
The very first time that I saw this in theaters, I hated Holdo at first. I was like, why is she like not listening to Leia's orders? Why is she telling Poe not to do what he wants to do? And then, the thing happens and I was like, oh, Okay.
Oh, see, and I think that's actually that's kind of my soft take on it, is that Poe is dog sighting. Oh,
Your mic's off.
you muted yourself.
Sorry, I think we're gonna have an appearance. Oh,
Husband watch.
Oh, look at
Husband
Husband
watch.
Watch 2022.
ow, 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 Mia.
Oh,
Okay.
tail whips to the
Whip lap.
face.
Say hi, Josh. You're live. Never mind. All right, go away.
All right. When it's live, everyone comes home. But the soft take is Poe is that audience character. Like, we've been with him for an entire movie. Everything that he does, we're gonna be there for. I watched this movie and I hated Holdo for the first time. And then I get to the end and I go, oh, okay, Holdo was actually really cool. We were just not being shown the whole story. And because she wanted to sequester information, that's what, people do. It's military. And everyone lost their freaking mind saying, why wasn't she just tell him the plan? What's the point? You're just mad you didn't get told the plan.
Yeah.
You're mad I get
Exactly.
it. I'm mad I didn't get told the plan. But knowing it and then rewatching it, you go, wow, yeah, Poe is just really, really angry like this whole time. And I still can't figure out why. It really is coming down to he looks at war a specific way. And what I love is he and Finn look at war the same way. And when we get to Crate, now they look at war differently. And we get to see another great story can kind of arc around. And no one talks about how similar those arcs are. And then again, also, it's a little bit out of character for both of them based on what we see in the first movie. People will argue. I am not those people. I will argue that the Poe stuff makes me very not happy for most of this movie because these two very, very, very different characters. And that changes. That changes when BB-8 shows up.
He missed his boy.
He missed his old buddy. Just belly rubs.
Well, tummy scratches.
Hey, when I'm away from my dog, I'm a mean person too.
Yeah, it's understandable. That's all it was. That's all I had to do. And we're gonna dive back in because we got a little bit of stuff here, and by a little bit of stuff, I mean we've got the throne room, Snoke ship, and Crate. So for the Snoke ship of it all, like I said, Finn and Rose had lost. DJ had sold them out with the information that the evac transports are heading to the planet, so they're being bombarded. And then death is about to be dealt when the Holdo maneuver happens. BB-8 ends up saving them with an AT-ST. Finn beats Phasma, sure, and then they escape off the ship before it dies, and they do that in a Lambda shuttle. Anything we want to talk about the Del Toro, the remainder up to this point with BB-8?
I mean, Del Toro's there. He has a fun accent.
He's there.
There.
I felt more.
I mean, Benicio, I think out of everyone in this film, he's probably the most that kind of fulfills a means to an end, if that makes sense. Like, he's kind of your cliche, double crosser kind of character. Thinks you're helping out one side, helps out the other. He's just he's a MacGuffin character, if you will. He just moves the plot ahead. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's really all I have to say about Del Toro's character.
Leah.
I hate his character, but like in the way you're supposed to hate a character.
I knew you were gonna do it.
Not in like I hate this character because they exist. I just hate him because he's just the bad guy.
Like me and the Dominic Monaghan in Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
It's fair. It's fair. Don't be like me. Be like Leah, kids. That's the moral of this segment. Now let's jump to the throne room because that's what everybody's really here for. Gotta roll up the sleeves. This one. So I'm gonna do everything that we've seen in the throne room. Going up into the throne room, Rey and Kylo are in the elevator. All good scenes seem to happen in an elevator.
True.
And she tells him, I've seen your future. At the right time, when the moment really counts, you'll turn. Foreshadowing. Kylo says, I've seen your parents. I know their true lineage. Foreshadowing with an asterisk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Snoke says they go in, and Snoke says that he bridged Rey and Solo's minds. Liar. Snoke pulls the information from Rey's mind, talking about the island and seeing where he is. He being Luke Skywalker, of course. Rey tries to strike down Snoke, and then that allows Kylo to pull a ruse and kill Snoke, saving Rey. And then we get the most badass fight in this entire trilogy, where Kylo and Rey are back to back fighting those Sith trooping, loopin' doopin' losers as they get sliced and diced by red and blue sabers. Great teamwork. The use of first names here are important. You know, Rey, I don't think ever gets called, if I'm being honest, but Ben Solo's name gets yelled a lot. We get the throwing of the saber. Oh my God, I could gush on this. I wanted to do a play-by-play breakdown like I did on Reckless Rebels yesterday, but I figured probably should save time and not do that. This scene is fantastic, and then it ends with Kylo trying to sway Rey by saying her parents are nobodies, filthy drunk traders buried in a meaningless pit on Jakku. Asterisk. That could be true. They both force pull the lightsaber when the Holdo maneuver happens. Rey ends up leaving. We then see Kylo wake up, and we get one of my probably my third favorite line from this movie: "The Supreme Leader is dead." And
long live the Supreme Leader.
long live the Supreme Leader. And that gets us to Crate. But let's gush on this throne room sequence.
Yes.
Let's start with Bethanne.
So, I mean, we could talk about it being just one of the best, like, choreographed fight scenes, maybe in movie history. I would go as far as to say. But here's what makes it for me. It's the cinematography. It's the color grading. The color grading throughout the whole film, not to get too nerdy, is breathtaking. I love films where every frame is like a fucking painting. And that's how I feel about this film. And that especially extends to the throne room. And the way that they just mix the colors with it, make you feel the intensity of it. That's what makes that scene for me, as well as seeing, you know, from a storyline perspective, Ben and Rey working together to fight. You know, I think as far as for like the outcome of Ben asking Rey to join her, as I kind of told you guys, I almost wish she did. Like, I was like, man, that'd be a fun what if Marvel style episode of what if she joins? And then, you know, it's Ben Rey together running the kingdom of Ben Rey or something like that. Like, I think that would be so fun. But I think, like, you know, not to go into Rise of Skywalker, I almost wish, though, like, it was this, almost wish, like, Ben went to the side of the light in this film. They started working together, and the next film was The Resistance. But that's fine. I'm not here to talk about my fan theories. I just think overall, to celebrate this scene, it was such a slam dunk. It was so well executed.
Leah.
The first time seeing this movie in theaters, I think I held my breath the entire time because it was just such an exciting, intense scene. I was like, what the hell is happening? Like, I didn't see this coming. Like, I didn't think they were going to kill Snoke. I thought Snoke was maybe still a hologram at this point because we weren't really sure. The physicality of this fight, like, is unreal. Adam is a big guy. Like, he's like 6'3" or something.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's got a military background. Like, he's a big guy. And you got itty bitty Daisy next to him. And there's the scene where she reaches back and grabs his thigh to get leverage to lean back.
Hell
and like,
yeah.
It's like the coolest fight choreography I've ever seen. And it's just, normally when I watch that scene, I watch Rey's fight. But the other night when I watched it, I made a point to watch Ben fight the whole time. And like, you could tell he's having the time of his life. Like, that's all he wanted to do was sword fight with some CGI guys. He's just into it so much. I love this scene. Like, I was thinking when I watched it on Monday, I could just watch this scene on loop for 2 hours and be happy, and probably still catch new things. But I also love how during the scene, there's that fire that burns the red backdrop away as like a symbolism of, Snoke's future has died. He's not in control anymore. What's going to happen?
It's a burning of the veil. That is very, very. I love the way that this movie set everything up. I also wish Rise of Skywalker had handled it better. Not differently.
I wanted them to switch so bad. I wanted her to go to the dark and him to go to the light and trade places.
I really wanted that.
And I was so set on that theory.
They're going to save that for like Old Republic stuff, I think, sadly. Because that would have been great. I agree. And it's interesting that they both have a vision of the future that is steeped in some truth, actually. They are buried in a pauper's grave on Jakku. Her parents, most likely, killed for nothing. Because at the end of the day, their deaths were meant to protect her. So they died at a death that is, no one's ever going to know about. And they're nobodies to him. He could have seen their faces. He doesn't know who they are. So
can we talk about that real quick?
Let's talk about it.
Okay. So I need to talk about this scene because I've been holding this since I first saw the film, because when it came out, it felt like everyone hated that she was from nobody. Now, I know Rise of Skywalker and Palpatine and all that stuff.
That doesn't exist yet. For the sake
that
of this
doesn't exist. Thank you. I think that is one of the most brilliant storytelling themes that could have happened to the Star Wars franchise. And here is why. This film, overall, if Force Awakens is a copy of New Hope, which we could all argue is probably correct, what Rian Johnson did in this film is he made the Star Wars franchise evolve. And how he did that was getting rid of the midichlorians and saying, hey, the Force is for everybody. And even though Rey is a nobody, she can still wield the Force. And that was such an exciting direction that, unfortunately, because, and I've talked about this, there is this, it's in the nerd culture and a little bit in the American audience culture, because something does not go in the story arcs that we have been taught, where there's almost like a God complex, hero complex type vibe of, no, you have to be something in order to be something great. Rian Johnson leveled that playing field, but it didn't sit well because we're so used to the same story arcs over and over again that we can't accept it. And I think that is the biggest shame about this film and the way it was perceived, is because he was clearly, and his team were evolving the series. And I think Last Jedi, not to get too hyperbolic, is maybe the last time where we'll see an actual well-written movie that stands on its own legs outside of a franchise. So if you took Last Jedi and didn't even put in Star Wars, it would still hold up as such a well-written movie. And unfortunately, I think that is a consequence. It was so well written, it was so well executed, and it explored those ideas. But because people revolted, I think that's why we saw later on what happened in Rise of Skywalker. I do not think that was the original vision, the way that it went down. So I had to get that out of my system, because that has annoyed me for maybe, what is it, like 6 years since we saw it? That's always annoyed me.
I subscribe to Rey Nobody and refuse to believe she's a Palpatine anyway, so yes.
I agree with that. I think she should be a nobody. That's what they're trying to say through the whole film.
Yeah, well, then it makes the scene at the end with the little, like, orphan slave
Broom
kid
boy.
with
Broom
broom.
boy. Exactly.
It's so much harder. If Rey is a Palpatine, that scene means nothing. But if Rey is nobody, then that scene means so much more.
Sorry, go ahead, Thomas.
I mean, yes, and also no at the same time. Like, because Finn technically would be this nobody. We don't know anything about him. And then in the next movie, he's hinted at being force sensitive,
have to
which is
tell
the
you something.
stupidest decision I've ever heard of in my life.
Mhm.
Like, oh, that's the big secret you didn't want him to say? Okay. We'll get to that next week.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
I also like the idea when it first came out, I was like, oh man, like her parents are nobody. Like I was really hoping for this. And as it settled and I went with it, I was like, I can already tell. I can see the future enough. That's not standing. No matter what, if you're mad at it, it's just don't worry. That's not going to stand. It's set up perfectly for another filmmaker to fill in or be like, no, the dark side tells a lie, which, also it does. But I really love the idea that she was a nobody, especially when the real alternative that we have, the one that is reality, is she's a fucking Palpatine, and it's the Skywalker saga, or is it the Palpatine saga? Somebody,
it's the Palpatine saga.
Somebody define. It's just we get 9 movies about the Palpatines and the Skywalkers basically fucking around in the Force, trying to control it, only for them all to basically have to die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is that if in my world, if it had gone to it just being nobodies, that would have been the new legacy. That's what gave the power to when Luke says the rebellion is being reborn. We're moving on past the Skywalkers and the Palpatines and the Solos. We're moving on into a new era of the rebellion. And that, that was really exciting to see when I saw that in theaters, that they were really doing something different.
I really like that. I also think that in a better world, we get a better resolution for both of these characters. That kind of lines up with where they were setting. I want Colin Trevorrow's script to be animated. Honestly, I want to see what that was. I think that would have paid off every character in a great way. That in Rise of Skywalker, most of them get shoved to the back burner. But we're not here to talk about the lamentings of Rise of Skywalker. We are still talking.
That's next week.
Last Jedi. We're still on the positive side of the Force. We're on Crate. We get some skim speeders versus First Order. Rey draws off the TIE fighters with the Millennium Falcon. Finn disobeys an order with a death wish. Rose makes the save, kisses the himbo Finn. No one wants to come make the save after hearing the distress signal. Luke saves everyone via the Force Luke walks up and faces off Kylo one-on-one with a laser sword and mentions that the last Jedi he will not be. Everyone escapes the bunker during this time while Kylo loses his fucking mind. Rey is lifting rocks. Luke is force projecting himself from Octo. Luke fades into the Force, and kids, the kids on Canto Bight retell the story of Crate and Luke Skywalker. Tiny Tim, aka Broom Boy, holds his broom like a lightsaber.
Oh my gosh, Tiny Tim.
He's Tiny Tim now. I don't care what his name is.
Why do we have a Christmas Carol Star Wars? Why is this not a thing now?
Mark, oh my
maybe
god!
That's next year's Lego holiday special.
Yeah.
Han Solo would 100%
and Solo would
be
the nephew. Gosh.
Oh my god, that'd be great. Yeah. Han Solo. Oh, look, I did this. I don't want that. That'd be great. Let's just say, can we
I don't care.
Can we get Harrison Ford to play Ebenezer Scrooge?
That's what I want.
Here? Can we fan cast the fuck out of that right now?
And I need him to say, I don't care, as a line in the movie.
I don't care. I can't do a Harrison Ford. I'm not old enough to have that kind of gravel. And built-in curmudgeon. So that is the plot of The Last Jedi. Some of the themes we've discussed. Is there anything that you didn't get to talk about, ladies, so far?
I love in the crate scene. I love in the crate scene Finn's arc. He starts off the movie very much only caring about himself, under the guise of caring about Rey, but he just escaped. I mean, he escaped the First Order because he only cared about himself. He only asked Poe for help because he could ask it. Like, he only asked Poe for help because he needed to get off the ship. Like, it was very much self-serving. He only joined the Resistance so that no one would get mad at him because he needed to get away from the First Order. And so he
Right.
starts off the movie, even in The Last Jedi, is still very selfish and very much like, I'm getting the fuck off of this ship because things are not going to end well. And then he meets Rose and learns, you know, like I said, the human cost of war. As a stormtrooper, I don't think he probably ever really thought about it because they were, you know, faceless and nameless. And he ends the movie caring very deeply about Rose and this bond they've built in their codebreaker task. And so while I still think Finn as a whole was not given the arc overall that he deserved, I like this particular arc in The Last Jedi.
It's also an arc, excuse me, that carries well over as far as for a character study from Force Awakens to Last Jedi. It makes sense, the direction that he went, because even in Force Awakens, he's still very selfish. And I mean, you can't blame him. He's never had friends. He's never had friends. He hasn't learned the social cues yet.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense for him to go that route. I think, and you know, Rey's storyline makes sense. Everybody's storyline makes sense. I do have to say it's not even an issue. I actually love how they did it in the first film. It's just, if it's tied to Force Awakens, like you were pointing out, Thomas, you get two different Poes. You get the really, you know, hero bombastic character in Force Awakens, who's everybody's friend. And then in Last Jedi, you're getting a guy who's just like a little more cocky, don't tell me what to do. And, you know, it's just, that's where I find the most misalignment between the two and everyone's story arc, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And I think this is the start of Poe just kind of fucking hating his life, you know, because in the very next movie, he's not Poe from the end of this movie. He's Poe from the beginning of the movie. But now he's mad at Rey. And granted, I do understand his reasonings for being mad at Rey, you know. He's like, oh, she's a better pilot. She understands this ship better. She would be better off served flying the ship than me, but she's not here because she's off lifting rocks, slicing up trees, just deforesting everything, just like the Empire. How could she? I say, how could she? Back to the plot. And it really is, it's the end of really good storylines for most of the characters.
Yeah.
You know, because in the next movie, some characters have great storylines and some characters are written out of there, and then lines that they could have used were given away to characters whom we never got a name for. I'm not going to say who, Dominic Monaghan, but we went there. I love Rose so much in this. She is the heart of the film to me in a way. Like, she's us. Like, when she meets the Finn,
she's doing talking.
She's fangirls.
Doing talking.
She's doing talking. And it's like, may the force be with you. Wow. And then she realizes, oh, it's just a person. Okay, that's unfortunate. You know, never meet your heroes. And then she realizes, oh no, like, I see, like, he did what he had to do, but at the same time, he's also trying to help other people, and he does grow and does learn how to care and socialize and care about others, which does get paid off in the future. But that's like the only thing he does in the 3-hour movie that is Rise of Skywalker. And that's where my complaint will come next week. Guaranteed. I don't know why people hated Rose.
I don't either.
I assume racism. I'm going to be honest. I always have to assume that, considering where I grew up in the South.
She got the shittiest treatment in Rise of Skywalker out of any character.
I agree.
Really did.
And Terry McIver in the comment says, Rose was an excellent character in Last Jedi. Sadly, fans are absolute asshats and let their gatekeeping get the better of them.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I concur. So do you have any issues with Luke Skywalker in this film? That's the only question I have left.
No. Because the way I think about it, it's very similar to when the sequel to To Kill a Mockingbird came out. go set a Watchman. And everyone got really pissed that Atticus was not this hero that we had built him up to be for, 70 years? Because he had gotten older, and Scout got older in that book, and her perspective of her father changed. And I think that is how the world looks at Luke Skywalker. They don't want to face the fact that their hero has flaws. And like when we saw Luke in the original trilogy, it was basically the slice of the golden years. And he's aged. Like if he was the same Luke as he was during the Empire, he would be the most boring character ever. Like no one would have liked him either, because they would have been like, well, this is just a remake of Empire Strikes Back, except he's Yoda and Rey is Luke, and then people have been mad about a different reason. But I think that no one stays the same, and the people you idolize don't stay the same, and they're going to change and probably maybe change their perspectives, and it's just a very real thing that makes Luke a very real character.
Look, if I stayed like this until the age of 60, we're going to have a problem, okay?
Yeah.
It's called maturity.
Yeah.
And characters are allowed to mature and to grow and to become different. And like Leah and I were talking, I think you missed this, Thomas. I actually love that they wrote some of Mark Hamill's humor into it, because I think once you saw the Luke of the originals, very dialogue and story heavy, cookie cutter, hero boy. And for this, we're able to see a Luke that has been through it and is done. And that very much matches the personality of Mark Hamill's sarcasm. And so I love how they were able to marry those two together. But I think it does make sense for the script. You have to have a Luke that has been through it. The Ben Solo thing messed him up because he realized he messed up, and he's letting those affect him. And that's the state that we see him in. And I think it's very important to show characters, add some realness to them, not just go off the cookie cutter format that you're used to.
What were you going to say, Leah?
It's also another cost of war moment. Like, Luke saw a lot of death and a lot of people that he loved die. Like, he's not going to be okay at the end of that. He killed his father, basically.
True. No telling who else he might have had to kill in a 30-year span either.
Yeah. We don't know what's happened.
We don't know if Grogu turned to the dark side and he had to slay that little son of a blue. Could you imagine if Grogu turned to the dark side?
Could you be so upset?
That. Gosh,
let's
has a little
about...
Kylo Ren haircut. I love it.
Oh, let's go!
I'd be so upset.
Kylo grew.
Teenage Grogu.
Kylo Grogu.
Kylo grew.
Kylo grew.
That's what we call him. So let's go ahead and write our what if fan series of what if Rey joined Kylo Ren. What do you think happens? It's a what if. Now we get to answer what if. What if Rey joins?
It's a new Sith Empire.
Oh.
Because there's two. It's the rule of two.
Is it a Sith Empire? Because, I mean, as we know, Ben...
Yeah, I guess because they're on the dark side.
But Ben has...
Was a Sith? We don't know much about Snoke.
We don't know what Snoke was. But at the end of the day, I mean, Ben did have conflictions, right?
Yeah.
He's got to know his mom's not dead. Like, he can feel that.
Yeah, he can feel that.
I would assume. Well, he can, because we see that in Rise of Skywalker. So he knows his mom's not dead. So he's like, oh, well, as long as I don't interact. And if Rey joins him, I think that she joins him under the ruse of joining him. But in reality, it's to turn him. Maybe he has to die to have that happen.
I just want that one concept art of Rey on the Sith throne to just be a reality. That's all I want.
Picture this. Rey joins Ben. They get married, and it becomes WandaVision.
This is
style
a fan fiction
show. And you have Rey unfortunately at home because this is, WandaVision, but she is, in her Sith Force way, making some pancakes, right? And Ben comes home. Hi, honey. How are you? Well, I killed another set of humans today. And that's the series. It's a whole series about the day-to-day being on the dark side. And, they will have cookies because that's how it goes. The dark side always has cookies.
Mm.
And that's it. That's what it is. That's my theory.
Kylo Ray vision. I like it.
Kylo Ray
Yes.
vision. Yes.
Kylo Ray vision.
Raylo vision.
Raylo vision. There you go.
Yeah, I was not a Rayloer. I didn't care. Like I can absolutely recognize that they are very, very attractive people with fire chemistry on screen. But I was like, I don't need them to be a thing. I don't need them to kiss. I don't need them to have these emotions.
You didn't watch the fight scene and then say, now kiss in your head? Because that's what I said. Right after the fight scene and they look at each other, I'm like, now kiss.
I mean, I don't think I did. But that's definitely not what I think now. Now I'm like, yeah, it was badass. Like,
I still watch it and say, now kiss.
Now kiss.
In another world, they'd have kissed right there and pissed everyone off entirely.
Yes.
Ryan, you coward.
Of all the things we're really mad about, you didn't make them kiss then. Wow. So we've wrapped up 2/3 of this trilogy. I gotta say, it's probably the top 66% of this trilogy. Am I right?
Yeah.
That's not being fair going into the last one.
No.
But that's okay because we're here and we're going to do it anyway. Next week, we're going to dive into the rise of Skywalker. And I, for one, am going to watch this movie.
It'll happen.
I'm hopeful for one thing, and that is that I come out with something new that makes me appreciate the movie more than I do now.
Yeah.
So I stopped focusing on Dominic fucking Monaghan.
It has its moments. It does have some moments, which we can talk about.
It does,
but it has more moments that make me go, what the fuck?
Yeah.
In retrospect, that
I swear to God, if one person gets faked that they're gonna, like, if I get faked out that one person's gonna die, I'm gonna lose it.
You will, don't worry.
It's gonna happen at least twice.
Because I was sobbing at 2 different points in the movie.
The only one I'm happy about is Chewie. I'm okay with them faking me out on Chewie. After that point,
I was so upset.
Yeah, I was like, did they just kill Chewie? Like, am I about to hate this movie? Because I know no matter what happens, if Chewie doesn't come back or he's still dead, I'm not going to be okay. And then he's back. And I'm like, oh, life's good. They're not going to do that again.
Surprise.
But then there's Babu Fring. Hey. So, we got moments.
And they fly now.
Oh, they fly now?
They fly now. They fly now.
Good old Moon Knight over here. They fly now. That brings us to the end of this film. Wow, we did it. We did it, ladies.
We did it.
Next week, we will rank where The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker and The Force Awakens all fit in the trilogy, and then we'll rank the trilogy. As you can tell, we probably have similar rankings.
Yes.
Where can everyone find you ladies on the social medias?
You can find our show under She Will Rock You Podcast on Instagram, She Will Rock the letter U pod on Twitter. If you want more direct links, we have a website, shewillrockyou.com. All of our links are there. All of our episodes are there. Anything you want to know about us is there. Our patron saints of our podcast
Newly
are now
patron
up.
saints page.
Yes. So the ladies that we most respect and admire that we've covered on our show, go learn something about one or all of them. You can find me on Instagram at LeahElizabeth.j, on Twitter, Leah_Elizabeth J. Bethanne?
You can find me at Bethanne Tarpley. That is across Instagram and Twitter. Yeah, pretty much it for me.
Where can we find your dog?
Rhodey used to have a Instagram account called the Hipster Beagle that has since not been picked up in a very long time. But if you want to find them, I do have fun highlights. Here's Mia sleeping. And I do post them occasionally. There's Rhodey. I do post them occasionally on my social. So the best way to see my dogs is to follow me, which is a great reason to follow. Not for me, my dogs.
But if you're a cat person, follow me.
She's the one to go to.
Post a lot of cat content.
Dog content, cat content.
Yes.
Balanced as a dyad is needed to be. You can find all of the links for Lights Thunder Action at linktree.com/LightsThunderAction, all one word, no hyphens, no spaces. You can find me personally at linktree.com/TCRochesterACT. That'll get you links to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm on Twitter at TCRochesterACT as well. I tweet stuff. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's not. It's up for debated every time.
Hey, man, we got to workshop our jokes somehow.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I laugh, and that's my audience.
All that matters.
There you go. I'm with you.
Next week, again, we wrap up the trilogy of trilogies, and we're going to have a most wonderful time, and it's going to end. We'll go back on a hiatus for a week or two to kind of recalibrate to life. As always, I am Thomas Carter Rochester. I've been joined by Leah Jones and Bethanne Tarpley. Almost switch your last names there for a second. Thank you for joining episode 75 of Lights Thunder Action. Au revoir.